Greetings, fellow Whovians, and welcome to Timey Wimey Review. We have had a lot of Doctor Who news over the past few days with the Season 1, Series 14 episode announcements, as well as a brand new gorgeous trailer for the upcoming series over the Easter weekend. We've even had some jokey news over April Fool's Day, which you can check out both of those videos on the Timey Wimey Review YouTube channel. But Russell T Davies has also been a very busy man over the past few days with the recent podcast that he was invited to, and has talked quite a lot of sort of Doctor Who-esque, but sort of like the future of Doctor Who that I just wanted to sort of dissect in a bit more detail in this video. Doctor Who showrunner Russell T Davies was on the Forecrotch and Normcore They Like to Watch podcast. He was speaking, they did an interview with him, which was released a few days ago, and you can still listen to now on Spotify or various podcast outlets. I listened to it in full as myself a few days ago, and it was quite an interesting interview, and so much so that it kind of caught fire. Various UK's news outlets was posting this on social media. Ironically, a little bit on the same day as the Doctor Who magazine was published as well, with Russell T Davies doing the foreword about talking about next year, with it being the 20th anniversary of modern Doctor Who since it was revived back in 2005, and Russell T Davies kind of squashed any rumours of some sort of celebration for that particular series, or that particular anniversary, which kind of makes sense. Where we've only recently had the centenary special with some classic Who Doctors returning. We also obviously had the 60th anniversary special with David Tennant returning. So it would kind of muddy the waters a little bit with Ncuti Gatwa's, in that point, will be his second season as the Doctor. So that, it's sort of like bringing it sort of new and a bit of a sort of a reboot for Doctor Who, and then was kind of, I won't say muddying the waters as such, because we are having a few elements of the Doctor's past in this new series. But to have a full-on celebratory type of stuff, I can understand why Russell T Davies is kind of stepping away from that. But we also know that he lies. So whether he's got something as a massive surprise in the pipeline, you never know. I'd be very surprised if it's going to involve Christopher Eccleston, to be brutally honest, as aforementioned in previous videos that you can check out on this channel. But anyway, let's talk about his time on the They Like to Watch podcast, because like I said, it was a very interesting interview. Lots of social media outlets published their thoughts onto that, so I thought I will compare what I heard and what the media outlets as interpreted. So, for example, I'm going to just pick at random Radio Times on this one. They published, when it was announced back in 2022 that Disney Plus would become the new home for Doctor Who internationally, fans were reassured that the show would remain on its traditional BBC home in the UK, while allowing for a new audience to enjoy the adventures of the Doctor and their companions worldwide. Since then, the series has seen its 60th anniversary specials released on the streaming platform, along with the most recent Christmas special, and this co-production is something showrunner Russell T Davies has always thought was necessary for the sci-fi series. Speaking on the Forecrotch and Normcore They Like to Watch podcast, Davies opened up about the partnership between the BBC and Disney for Doctor Who. Russell T Davies explained, "We now live in a science fiction age. We live in a world of streaming. We live in a world where every 11-year-old is watching Stranger Things because they are 11-year-old kids in it, and that's their language, that's their culture, that's their references, that's their muse." Davies added that when watching shows like Stranger Things and The Mandalorian, that they have such exposure on streaming platforms, he thought it would be a real shame for Doctor Who not to be up there amongst the big hitters. He continued, "Even before they approached me, I have always said in various interviews, I think Doctor Who would have to become a co-production. There is no way the BBC is going to fund that." In terms of its future on the BBC, Davies explains, "You've only got to look in the long term at the end of the BBC, which is somehow, surely, undoubtedly on its way in some shape or form." Now, I think what they're meant to say is David saying that the BBC is on its way out in some shape or form. But anyway, we'll continue. "What, is Doctor Who going to die then? No. You've got to prepare for that kind of stuff. But all of that kind of flim-flam on top of the fact that I love it and it's the only chance you have in television for me to really write in pictures." He went on to say, "If Disney collapsed tomorrow and we had to go back to making Doctor Who on a normal BBC budget, we'd all rally round and make it, and suddenly stories would become claustrophobic, ghost stories, and a lot of people would like that very much." Having listened to the podcast, that's pretty much word for word what Russell T Davies said. But to dissect that a little bit further, what I interpret it as is Russell T Davies feels that Doctor Who needs to be on a more global platform than what the BBC can currently offer. So that doesn't mean, in terms of competing against shows like Mandalorian, Stranger Things, in terms of, I would say, special effects budgets, but obviously you want it to look at Doctor Who to look its best in terms of special effects. Now, I totally agree that Doctor Who needs to be on a global platform. It kind of did have that, to be fair, when Doctor Who was on Netflix around the world outside the UK. But Disney Plus is kind of like that main solid worldwide audience that I know the BBC are looking at, Russell T Davies is looking at, and of course Disney are looking at as well as part of new shows to sort of export onto their streaming platform. So there is a bit of a win-win situation in that terms of making Doctor Who global, which absolutely I'm passionate about. The more eyes on this product, the better. The only sort of concerns I have is, oh my god, it's got to look like $1 million or $1 billion to compete with Stranger Things and Mandalorian and all those types of shows. No, it doesn't. Keep it to what Doctor Who does best, because that's what people love about Doctor Who. For me, it's the quality of the writing I would take over the special effects. Now, don't get me wrong, Doctor Who looks absolutely gorgeous from the recent trailers that we have got. So if we've got that nice balance of great storytelling and great effects and sets, set designs and costumes and makeup, then I am going to be a very, very happy Whovian. Now, what he mentioned about the BBC, let's go back to that. So that sentence was, "You've got to look in the long term at the end of the BBC, which is somehow, surely, undoubtedly on its way in some shape or form." Now, what he means by that is, just put in a bit of context. Here in the UK, we pay a TV license fee, which basically funds the BBC. It's not BBC is not a commercial channel. Like, for example, here in the UK, ITV, they're funded by advertising. Same as probably like stream platforms as Netflix, they're starting, and advertising as well. So here in the UK, we pay a license fee, which is going up now to about, I think, £159 a month. So you're looking around about sort of £14 a month that everyone pretty much has to pay if they're wanting to watch live television. You don't have to pay a license fee if you only watch catch-up services. So, for example, in the UK, ITVX, Netflix, Amazon Prime. If you're watching anything live through any channels, like any Sky Sports, anything on the BBC, and even BBC iPlayer as a catch-up service, you have to pay the license fee. Otherwise, you could be fined and prosecuted if you get caught out with that. We have TV detector vans here in the UK. So when you ever said say in remembrance of the Daleks TV detector vans, that's what they're there for, to make sure that you are paying your license fee. Otherwise, you risk getting fined and prosecuted. So that fee is basically paying for the BBC. which is a debate all on its own. And it's been an ongoing debate here in the UK for quite some time. People don't want to pay it, which I kind of understand, especially cost of living crisis here in the UK. You know, it's an extra sort of payment that probably quite a lot of people find unnecessary to pay, and that's their right and that's their choice. I'm happy to pay it because I watch quite a lot of BBC content. You know, I watch The Apprentice. I watch a lot of the sports that they do show, like the tennis at Wimbledon. They show the snooker world championships, and they show the FA Cup as well. Which, you know, I've kind of not fallen out of love of football as such, but I don't watch football, follow football as much because I just don't have the time. But I do. There is something incredibly comforting of having the FA Cup on the BBC, as well as the other big World Cups and European Cups in football as well. Not only that, the BBC do have their own sort of channels. They also pay for the radio channels as well. You've got like the education sort of side of things, like BBC Bite Size. You've got BBC News as well. So, you know, there is a lot that the BBC do offer on a broader scale, um, as part of the license fee. And this is the big pro and con, really. You know, everyone pays a flat fee, whether you are an absolute millionaire or you are below the poverty line, which is sadly increasing over, and it has increased its biggest increase in over 30 years. So, you know, again, you see the two sides of the coin. It's just not an easy debate to go into. And obviously, in the sort of crux of this is Doctor Who. You know, if the BBC didn't, you know, if the BBC did collapse tomorrow, where would Doctor Who be? Would it be safe? Absolutely. Probably, if anything, Disney Plus will go, thank you, we'll look after that, and we'll still have this co-production with Bad Wolf Studios. And, you know, I don't think, hopefully, it won't go Americanized, but, you know, Doctor Who will be safe. But for the BBC, that's probably their biggest export is Doctor Who. Top Gear would have been there, but Top Gear's in its own state of flux. So yeah, there is a lot to sort of unpack and debate about and talk about with that statement that Russell T Davies has said, which I feel was a little bit deflating to hear, with especially with Russell T Davies saying that, you know, a couple of years ago, you know, we need to fight for the BBC, and I definitely understand where he's coming from. Like I said, it is an absolute minefield to go into, and let me know in the comments. Do you agree or disagree with Russell Davies' comments about the BBC? Do you think it is on a brink of collapse? Do you agree or disagree in paying the license fee, and especially sort of outside the UK? Your thought about a license fee. Do you do something similar in your own country? Again, let me know. I think it would be quite tragic that the BBC, if the BBC didn't exist. I'm not saying that they're totally squeaky clean good guys. You've seen the Jimmy Savile scandals amongst many others. You know, that shouldn't have happened. But you know, in terms of like what they do publicly, and for the rest of the UK in terms of filmmaking and television making, you know, there will be consequences if there was no BBC. I would imagine. Mr. TARDIS reviews is a lot more sort of politically forward thinking than I am, and I'm sure he will probably be doing a post similar to this with what RTD has said. So I would recommend checking him out in more sort of detail. But in terms of Doctor Who, is it safe? Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you got to look at future proofing Doctor Who, and I think that is one of Russell Davies's missions is future proofing it, and I think we've seen that happening, and I'm sure it's going to expand as well. So it is going to be very different to when he was showrunner back in 2005. I'm sure lessons have been learnt, and yeah, it is a case of expanding on Doctor Who, because we were getting that back in 2013, and probably over the last few years, and going through the Chibnall era, it's still big. It was still big, case in point, with the Invincibles, with someone cosplaying in that episode as Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. I love the fact that there were millions of people around the world that are a fan of Doctor Who, and long may that reign. There was other parts of this podcast as well that I wanted to chat about. Russell T Davies mentioned briefly about the closure of the Doctor Who exhibition in Cardiff, and Russell T Davies basically said that that exhibition was amazing to look at, but it lost money, and so to bring something up the ground again, it'll be kind of a case of once bitten, twice shy. Now, that doesn't mean to say that they could not do something similar in the future. And again, having this partnership with Disney Plus, who's better to do these kind of theme parks and exhibitions than Disney? At the moment, Disney have done a Disney 100 exhibition at the XL in London. I saw a YouTuber film that, and it looks amazing, and that is set to close later this year. It's on its extended run already, so if you haven't gone there, check it out, because it's a really good exhibition. But that doesn't mean, even if you just get a bit of input into how to sort of future-proof these exhibitions. Sadly, I never went to the Doctor Who exhibition in Cardiff, and I imagine it was an amazing experience, and some great sort of memorabilia to look at, and props and costumes, and just and I can easily imagine that happening in the future. Also mentioned on this podcast finally was the merchandising side. There was a bit where they were saying, why did we not have something like a Meep plush toy, which was an absolute misfire, I thought, in terms of merchandising ready for Christmas. By which point, and I think you've seen this on various sort of outlets like TikTok, I kind of shared it on TikTok, my Timey Wimey Review TikTok page, Russell T Davies holding a prototype plush toy of Meep. And hopefully that's something that will be coming out in the near future. It's, nothing's been confirmed. They kind of sort of not dwell on that any further in that podcast, but I would love to see more merchandise like that. Like I said, a Meep plush toy should have been on the shelves on Christmas 2023. It is an absolute travesty that that didn't happen, and if it happens this Christmas, absolutely fantastic. I'm sure people will go gaga for it. But yeah, that should have happened, and maybe that's something that could be dwelled upon, and maybe open upon in terms of Doctor Who merchandising, because they're clambering off the shelves. I know Character Options are doing a fantastic job with the figures. I know they're sort of struggling financially in terms of rolling out more of the action figures, but I am impressed with the sets that we're getting so far. So that's my take on Russell T Davies's appearance on the They Like to Watch podcast. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on everything that was discussed today. And also, did you listen to that podcast, and what's your thoughts on the future of Doctor Who under Russell T Davies? Are you a big fan of it? Have you got your own concerns? Let me know in the comments. Let's have a good debate. Let's have a good chat about this. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please like, share and subscribe. Hit the closer bell for more notifications. Come say hello on Facebook and X. And do check out my other fantastic Doctor related content on the Timey Wimey Review TikTok page. And of course, right here on the Timey Wimey Review YouTube channel. Again, thanks for watching. Until we meet again.